Hello and welcome to another one of my thoughts videos. In this one I want to look at the beginnings or the next big scam that we're going to be faced with, which is the global climate change, global warming. As I said in the last video, they've already been working on this one, but they're going to ramp it up a bit more to give all sorts of excuses to limit us, control us, exterminate us and all that sort of thing, all in the name of saving the planet. Now, I'd like to talk about this before they start calling us conspiracy theorists and start also deleting us and censoring us so that we can't point out the science behind their lies. And so I thought I'd go right back to the beginning and tell you of when I first noticed that they were doing this. When I was a child, I remember the climate in New Zealand getting very, very hot, enough to melt tar, and then it got cool, and so I noticed that there were times of ups and downs in climate change. Climate change is no big new deal. We know that there are certain things like you get the 1 in 50 year flood, the 1 in 100 year flood, and they have these blocks of times when the last things. The Indian summer, we used to call it, that would come every 25, 30 years or so. There were these cycles that we could see happening, and they're going to take advantage of these cycles to try and scare us. Now, when I saw a total and blatant lie is way back at the end of last century. They started talking about this thing called the ozone hole over New Zealand. They were saying that the scientists had found a big hole developing over New Zealand by summer and all through to autumn, or fall as you Americans would say, and this was getting bigger all the time. But what I noticed eventually after studying it is this happens absolutely every year. And then I noticed after going into the mechanics and the chemistry of it, I noticed how they can take a truth, turn it on its head and give you a 180-degree lie, basically, view on the way it really is. Now, New Zealand has a very high incidence of skin cancer, and I myself have had a couple of cancers taken off, and I spent my childhood hiding from the sun to not get sunburned. So any information we could get about improving our health and this thing about the ozone hole was of interest, of course, and it was in the news and in the media a lot back at the end of last century. They discovered that over Antarctica there is a hole of, or a depletion zone of ozone over Antarctica, basically during the winter. And they blamed that on ozone being dismantled, as it were, by chlorine, bromine, and basically the propellants in our spray cans. And this was a political motivation to basically almost ban aerosol containers, and everybody got paranoid about using aerosol containers, and it was very manipulative, I thought. So I started to investigate more, and they were saying that this hole was getting bigger and then it would shrink and then bigger and shrink, and they were saying that we needed this ozone. And this is where the lie comes in. We need ozone to protect us. And the fact that it was depleting the ozone over Antarctica was evidence that the ozone was depleting and we were in danger because the ozone wasn't going to protect us. Now, this could not be further from the truth. It is actually a 180-degree lie, total opposite. We don't want ozone. This is crazy. And I spoke to many, many people, and I couldn't convince a single person that this was a full-on 180-degree bout-face lie. So I'll try and explain it to you, see if you can get the logic behind it. It's pure chemistry. So let's have a look at it. Now an oxygen atom has 8 protons, so 8 neutrons, and therefore it will have 8 electrons. The 2 will go on the inner shell, so let's just imagine that there, and we'll have room for 6 on the 8. 6 plus 2 is 8. Now on the outer shell there's room for 8, but we only have 6. And that's convenient because now another oxygen atom can share those 2 spaces with 2 of its electrons, and now you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 around that one and 8 around that one because they share 2 of them. Now what ozone does is when the sunshine comes in, boom, it basically, the energy in the sunshine, the ultraviolet rays, give this a big whack and absorbs that energy. It basically, boom, stops and blocks the ultraviolet by using that energy to shunt the oxygen into the other 2 and join them into an ozone molecule, which is 3 oxygens. So in joining those together, the oxygen, the 2 with the oxygen 1, absorbs the energy from the ultraviolet rays, and the byproduct, the final product, the result of the protection is an ozone molecule. So you see we have oxygen in our atmosphere, and it is the oxygen, O2s and O1s, joining together that absorbs the ultraviolet rays. It's what takes the energy out of that ray and uses that energy to combine the 2. Ozone is not what we want. It is oxygen. It's the presence of O2 and O1 that does the blocking. It's the oxygen that protects us, not ozone. Oxygen protects, ozone is just a byproduct. And it is good that the ozone depletes during winter, because that then does the reverse process and protects us. When there is no sunshine, chlorine molecules, boron and all the other, and the things from your spray cans basically knock that out, because it's a weird, difficult combination. So it splits an oxygen off with its 6 electrons to leave the more stable molecule of an oxygen 2 and an oxygen 1. And that, during winter, happens naturally. And it's good because we want to have many of these O1s and O2s ready to take the impact of the ultraviolet rays and save us. It is not ozone that protects us. It is oxygen that protects us. Ozone is just a byproduct. And it's a byproduct that we don't even want. We want oxygen, not ozone. So during winter, when the planet basically tilts it over Antarctica, there's no sunshine, and so the natural process of the breakup of ozone from O3 into O2 and O1 again is necessary for our protection. It is actually beneficial and necessary that we deplete the ozone layer over Antarctica every year, so that when summer comes again in New Zealand, we have more oxygen to protect us. Now, can you see that they've taken a chemical process where oxygen protects us, ozone's a byproduct, and they say it's the ozone that protects us and we need more ozone, so stop depleting it. It's a total absurdity. It's oxygen. We want the ozone. We want spray cans to break up the ozone into oxygen, O2 and O1 again, for our protection. Now, if there's any big problem, it is probably the airlines that are flying over Antarctica, sucking up a lot of oxygen and burning it and turning it into CO2, which then depletes the amount of oxygen that is available to protect us during summer, and therefore needs to be broken up in winter. But nobody's going to really want to stop flying airplanes to not deplete our oxygen that protects us. So what are you going to do? Blame it on ozone, not the oxygen, so that we can continue flying airplanes. So get that straight. Ozone is a no-no. Oxygen is a yes, and there's the big scam that they did on us to try and get us to stop using spray cans. That's just the first example that I saw, and be ready in the future for more of these scam tactics.